In accordance with paragraph 1 above, effective immediately, the county's diversity, equity, and inclusion statement adopted pursuant to the July 14th administrative resolution by motion of the County Council on September 22nd, 2020 is hereby repealed and of no further force and effect. The same shall be removed from the county employee handbook and the county website as soon as practicable. Be it further resolved that this administrative resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. Introduced by the County Council of Talbot County, Maryland at a regular meeting on February 25th, 2025, at which meeting copies were distributed to the public for inspection. Adopted by the County Council of Talbot County, Maryland at a regular meeting on March 11th, 2025, at which meeting copies were available to the public for inspection. Given under our hands in the Great Seal of Talbot County this 11th day of March in the year of our Lord, 2025.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. Okay, so I guess at this time we'll go ahead and open it up for discussion.
So I'd like to begin by thanking everyone for coming out for this topic both today and 2 weeks ago. Again, this is the First Amendment at work. My remarks today will be rooted in clarity and fact, as it is clear to me that from public comments last week, there are many out there that do not understand what this resolution is and that it is not. First, this is not a matter that extends beyond Talbot County employment. Many have tried to make this about themselves, other topics such as race, gender identity, accessibility, and have even gone as far as trying to distort God, distort religion, distort our Constitution, and even distort basic math. Since our last meeting, I've heard from even more Talbot County employees, and 0 employees have expressed the desire in keeping these resolutions. Instead, they have advised they are all in favor of repealing these resolutions.
Objection.
Another fact, the U.S. Constitution, specifically in the 14th Amendment, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Maryland Constitution, and the Talbot County Charter, as they stand, apply to protect everyone in Talbot County. If this council would like to reaffirm their support of the current laws that I just mentioned, that as a county we will protect all individual civil rights, then let's do that. This vote today does not gain support from the council or community, then any vote to keep these 2 administrative resolutions in place proves 4 things. 1, this is a political stunt. 2, that you are not interested in your citizens' true civil rights and protections. 3, it proves that you place more value in the 2 resolutions than existing civil rights and protections. And 4, that you simply choose to go against the oath of office you took when you took this office. Wow. Fact.
Be quiet. Be
Fact.
quiet.
The ramifications of having a DEI statement in place have already started to affect Talbot County. Everyone on this council has received an email from our sheriff stating that the $40,000 grant currently underway for policing in the town of Trapp was not contained in the list of grants unaffected by President Trump's executive order. This guidance was received directly from the state of Maryland. In that same email, the sheriff speaks to the violent crimes that have happened in Trapp over the last few years, including homicide, abduction, car thefts, and car burglaries. Any vote to keep these 2 administrative resolutions in place simply proves that playing politics is more important than the safety of our citizens of Trapp. Fact, the 2 administrative resolutions specifically called for a diversity statement. How equity and inclusion were added to the end product, I don't know, but it proves that these resolutions were brought in under political pretenses, without regard for true and real unity. Wording in the ultimate DEI employee statement actually includes this language. Equitable treatment does not necessarily mean treating everyone the same. They should be thrown out on their own merit. One final thought, I mentioned 2 weeks ago that this is fiscal responsibility and fighting for you. That still remains unchanged today. A vote to keep these 2 administrative resolutions only takes the federal tax dollars that Talbot County citizens have already paid into and will continue to pay into, and assures their use in other counties across the country where DEI policies are not in place. A yes vote to repeal these 2 resolutions guarantees the Talbot County citizens' federal tax dollars stay in Talbot County and benefit all, and I repeat, all of our citizens. Council, the choice is yours. Thank you all for your time. Mr. President, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr. Stout.
there's a lot
Yeah.
to unpack there. So
Please.
we really were not gonna go there tonight because all 5 of us have agreed to sit here and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And in some of those statements, the truth was not told. And we are physically responsible, yes, and we are protected under the Civil Rights Act, but this statement has nothing to do with that at all when it talks about diversity. It is not doing any harm to the employees, and I personally have not heard from one employee in Talbot County government that has said that they wanted to remove and repeal this statement. And if we're gonna say that, then they need to email all 5 of us, just like many of you did, with whatever opinion you may have. And I respect each and every one of you that responded, and I hope I emailed back to every one of you saying at least thank you, no matter what side you were on. But what we are not gonna do as this council is stand here and accept the lies that are pushed down from the federal government to our local community. We are not going to stand for it. Let me tell you, here as a minister, we can play under we can play under God, but God sees all things, and I am not going to allow it sitting here. I am not. We are not going to do this. We are not going to do this.
I simply want to address the idea that retaining these statements, the statement in the employee handbook and the annual report on training could somehow disqualify us for federal grants.
Yeah.
If you look at the executive order concerning this, it does not deprive federal funds for our airport modernization, for rural development, or for policing. And if you take, for example, so those funds are not imperiled. Not only that, but if you look at the grant to the sheriff's office, the sheriff's office actually has its own employee handbook, not the county's employee handbook. They don't use this one with this statement. The sheriff's office also does not participate in the county training. So that particular grant is applied for by the sheriff's office and not by the civilian side of county government. These funds, but the airport funds, the rural development funds also, at least as the White House is currently worded, the existing executive statements does not imperil these local grants.
So you're saying our sheriff is lying?
I am not
That's what it
saying the
sounds like
sheriff
to me.
is lying.
Well, if you look up that grant, which I did, it has no reference to DEI. There is no federal grant that you apply for that you have to say whether or not you have a DEI policy. As a nonprofit, I have applied for several grants. It is based on equal opportunity, and it's based on discrimination. Those are the only things in the grant application. It does not mention anything about DEI or any reference to DEI, none
So the state's
whatsoever.
wrong.
I'm not saying the state, or I'm not saying anything wrong. I'm just stating what the application says as it relates to when you make application to apply for it. That's what I'm saying, and and we have a statement, and diversity is important, and we all should go through diversity training because there are biases in a lot of us that we don't even recognize. And I recognize that I sometimes have bias. And in fact, to push it further, and not just the employees, but council members should go through diversity training as well. We all should, because there is bias. I mean, there's bias on this council. I've received it, so, I mean, we should go through diversity training.
Well, the same grant number, where we apply through these grants, it applies through the same county grant number.
Is that
So,
reference to
Pete,
me?
your point is moot. So, yeah, I don't know what to say. feel like I've said enough.
Well, I think I'm on record a couple of times on my
yeah.
view.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that the main flaw with this administrative resolution is that it's not a proper interpretation of the executive order that was executed, nor the executive order's intent to revoke a previous executive order. And so it really doesn't apply to our two resolutions that Mr. Stepp wants to rescind. So,
The ones that you're on record for saying they're just policies. Okay. Got it.
Well, I want to make sure we're crystal clear. It's a statement. I just want to say a few comments because I hadn't said a whole lot, okay? I was one of the ones that were here to actually put this on here, and everybody knows that at this stage. And I've listened to a lot of people. I've made a lot of phone calls. And first of all, I want to really, really thank staff, because it's really stressed out staff a little bit. And this is one of these subjects that mean a lot to everybody, and they really do. So staff, and I really, really appreciate you helping. I've talked to Don, I've talked to Clay, I've talked to Patrick. And, I really appreciate the effort that you've made trying to help us make a decision, okay? And at least, if anything, talk through it, okay? Because it is very, very important to everybody. It really is, and it means a lot. And I'm not going to sit up here half the night talking about the do's and don'ts. Unfortunately, I've seen enough in the last month that it hasn't got me to the point where, where I need to be with a lot of people. When you really, and I've read a lot of stuff on this, to tell you the truth. And really one thing, and I told Keisha, and me and Keisha talked a lot about this, we have. And we're on the opposite sides of this. That's what's good about democracy. Sometimes you can agree to disagree. And me and her rarely disagree. And, we've got Pete and we've got Lynn. And that's what it's all about. This council's not going to agree to everything. But there's one thing I did read, and I read it very closely, and everybody's read it, that the president, Lyndon Johnson, signed this EEO in July 2nd, 1964. And they did a lot of work making that and creating that. And that changed a lot of things, okay, for the best. And it really did. And I look at that as the blueprint and the foundation for everything. And I'm a little up in the air of dumping something on top of that. And that's kind of where I stand a little bit. I think things are all in place where they need to be. And I really appreciate you guys being out here listening to me and coming in here. And we gave you an opportunity last meeting to vent and say what you want. And I really do appreciate you guys being out here, and I do respect you guys because that's your opinion, and that's what it's all about. And we've got to be civil on things. So at this time, let's go ahead and vote. Madam Secretary, could you call the vote?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Stepp?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Nay.
Ms. Milky?
Nay.
Ms. Haight?
Nay.
Okay. Okay.